Hello, this is Craig Mertens, Director of Product Education for Inktavo, the parent company of Inksoft, Printavo, Graphics Flow, Sign Tracker, and now Clarity. We've expanded over to the UK with the acquisition of Clarity. Welcome to TrendWatch. TrendWatch was created as a webinar series, a partnership between S&S Activewear and Inktavo, and our goal is to bring new ideas and trends to you. In the class we're teaching today, it's kind of an exciting topic for me. Because I think a lot of times in corporate apparel, we get kind of one-dimensional. I call it logos on stuff. And there's so much more of a broader scope that you can offer your clients by integrating graphics and innovative lifestyle branding clothing into your product mix. And so we're going to be a little bit non-conforming today and show you some of the possibilities and tie that in with e-commerce and some new products and some featured products from S&S Activewear. So I'd like to introduce Christina Marcantelli. She's my co-host today. And Christina is the Sales Enablement Manager for S&S Activewear. Let's get started. So Christina, my first question I want to ask you is, trends are always changing. We know that. And so what are some of the key retail trends that you're seeing, and how is that kind of reshaping apparel in the corporate and promotional apparel space right now?
Yes. So it's been an interesting couple of years, obviously post-pandemic, but definitely in the promotional decorating business, there's trends always matter, right? Whether it's a new style, there's technology or innovation, staying ahead of these shifts is essential to meeting that customer demand. So we're seeing a ton of the return of vintage and retro. That's been a theme now for the last several years. We see like the 90s and the 80s making their way back with oversized, boxier fits, crops varying from baby tees to modest silhouettes. We're also seeing varsity jackets, rugby striped sweaters, track pants, stripes with that throwback sort of a retro sporty feel. We're also seeing now the boho chic of the 70s. They're pairing that with the high-waisted pants. Prints from those eras are giving kind of that nostalgic vibe with psychedelic trippy patterns, the punk of the 80s, and adding endless options for, keeping products fresh and new. Badges and patches, you see a lot on the runways this year, which was kind of interesting during Fashion Week, I noticed. Those were very prominent during a lot of those times, right? It reflected music, socioeconomic views, jobs, companies that they're affiliated with, and they're resurging, making decorating options unique and versatile. And that's great for our space, right? Because that's what we deal with, decorating. It's usually highlighting cultural interest, movements, keeping the promo decorated industry flourishing right now. Colors. Let's think about colors that are happening. Pantone of the year has been something that we've always kind of followed year after year. The earth-inspired color palettes are continuing to trend. We've seen a lot of those colors the last several years where people were using a lot of those earthy tones, pairing with neutrals, whites, beige tones, in a lot of the styles. But I would say probably this year that Mocha Mousse Pantone is probably the most versatile. It's giving you that decadent richness, but it's agreeable and it complements so many other colors out there. Navies, greens, olives, any of those tones looks really, really well with. It's also including in that the animal print surge again. That's one of my favorites. Everyone knows me as loving my leopard. And then those earthy friendly palettes, those always pair well as well. We also are seeing some pops of yellow emerging for 2025. You'll see pale tones, but you'll also see like bold and accessories and apparel, especially like whimsical florals and colors and prints. We're just seeing more of that cottage core aesthetic and very feminine details. These trends, they're flourishing in resort and travel industry for sure. You'll have something that's a buzzword, the après ski that we've had for the last several seasons, tropical paradise, even as staycations, exploring like local venues and attractions for a more affordable weekend getaway. We're still seeing a lot of different souvenirs and trends. So escapism is top of mind, especially, these days, especially this time of year, getting out of the cold for some of us. And the destinations usually will offer commemorative apparel in their souvenir shops. There's accessories, there's t-shirts, fleece, headwear, tea towels, anything of that nature that we can pretty much decorate to commemorate that. We still continue to see growing popularity with wellness and outdoor leisure. It's driving the demand for performance apparel, gear that supports those daily activities and active lifestyles. Social sports, rec leagues, just overall fitness in general is always in high demand. And it's increasing the need for proper apparel and gear to be part of that play. Think of your golf. It's ageless now. Golf, pickleball, those have been popular sports these days. Another shift that we're starting to see, or a lift, I should say, is the core. So again, another little buzzy word, but it's seeing a huge lift. The last few seasons, we started seeing this quiet luxury coming through, that bespoke styling where things are more tailored, kind of giving it an elevated appeal. They're adding in layering pieces to elevate the relaxed look. We had so much post-pandemic where everything was so comfortable. Now we're starting to see a shift where people want something a little bit different. More companies are returning to office. They need to include a more formal and tailoring. They're adding layers like quarter zips, blazers, wool coats over polos, wovens, t-shirts, even fleece hoodies we're seeing. Even in the streetwear industry, you're seeing that. I will say, though, that a lot of these dress shirts that were the typical dress shirts that even think of back when our parents were working, it was that stiff starch feel. We're now incorporating more of a modern twist where they have mobility, comfort, easier to care for, wrinkle resistant. Everybody wants something with comfort and ease. They're using more of a cotton spandex blend, so it gives it more of that stretch. Polyester camp or tied shirts, we've seen that gain popularity across this category as well. It's got a lightweight, casual, yet it's a polished appeal. So really tying in all of these trends, it's providing that insight, and having those resources to execute is usually pretty important in our world. The art, the decoration technique, all of those offer just as much is crucial to the success as is the product selection. Meaningful merchandise, we hear that a lot. It's a key factor to take into consideration. It's always about creating a deeper connection, supporting shared values, offering something that the recipients will value and most of all use. Highlighting the above trends that we talked about is great for the promotional product decorators, and also offers valuable products and decoration methods that align with that lifestyle and making a product that's much more meaningful.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in, and I completely agree with your analysis here on, the current trends. I noticed, I saw this firsthand. We had typically we just wear fun T-shirts with a cool graphic at trade shows, and this last run, we're going to Atlantic City next week, and it's cold here, so I ordered up some hoodies, left chest pocket embroidery, kind of boring, but very comfortable. And my coworkers are like, "Hey, why didn't you do some quarter zips?"
I never wore quarter zips in my entire life until I got into this industry, and now it's like a staple in my wardrobe.
And so I think a little, that kind of that trend to something a little bit more formal. I'd be happy to live in T-shirts all the time, but it is kind of something that's kind of fulfilling about looking a little bit better at a trade show. So we're going to be getting some quarter zips for the trade show
Awesome.
coming up. And so the other question, that I had kind of a follow-up question to this, because we're talking about here, there's graphical tie-ins to all of these trends. And you talk about vintage, graphical tie-ins. You're talking about florals as graphical tie-ins. So how do you take these trends and then translate them into corporate apparel and promotional products? Where do you see like the big impact here?
Well, definitely, especially with like the just the decoration methods themselves. So yes, we specialize in the blank apparel, but we're seeing so many people that want to get on the latest trend, and the easiest way to do that is with a decoration technique. So, and especially in your world, you're creating these pop-up small stores that you can keep that inventory kind of fresh and happening. It could be the same style that maybe you guys have always been using, but you change the decoration, the placement, the logo, even just adding elements of more color or just something of that nature. It gives it a fresh appeal. So it keeps people coming back and wanting something new. And we see that across all markets, right? All industries. The school and team will have that. And we also see it in this sector as well, because people want to wear things and be proud of it outside of just their organization. So the return to office, the shift in layering and polished casual styles, that's slowly making its way back into this trend. And I think it's just because we were so relaxed for so long these last several years. It feels like yesterday that, the pandemic happened, but we slowly are starting to see the evolution of going back into the office and not wanting to feel like we don't have kind of that elevated appeal and that look. And that could be fabrications, that could be just even the style of the silhouette that we're adding onto it. So you're getting that merge of just where it's not so buttoned up suit, but yet you're adding those elements in. The travel experience, we're also seeing that everybody wants to commemorate where they've been, right? You go to some venue, you're at a concert, you want that. You think you'd have enough t-shirts in your wardrobe until you're at a concert and you're like, I need that t-shirt, that $60 t-shirt that has to be in my, wardrobe. Or when you're going on a trip, you want to commemorate that. We work so hard to get to these trips and you finally have that downtime. You want to commemorate that. What's that? You use a fleece, there's a blanket, there's a pillow, something of that nature that always shows, especially if you travel with kids, you're getting every one of the kids. You have to wear one of the commemorative t-shirts. It's just a whole part of the experience. So that's where we really flourish in this industry because we're able to keep that fresh and new and be able to give people a piece of a memory.
You said something that resonated with me. I always think about corporate apparel from the perspective of wearing something that you want to wear, that you choose to wear versus wearing something that you have to wear. And I think of it like as my Saturday t-shirt. If I have a corporate apparel item and I pick it out of my wardrobe to wear on Saturday when I'm not working, that means somebody did a good job of producing, cool graphics or cool style. I think trying to create products that people want to wear. And I always see that as plus business. There's always that core uniform business, right? That's the boring logo on the pocket, whether it's embroidery or just the company logo on gear. But creating something graphically that people really connect with and say, man, I'd like wearing this shirt. So with that being said, when you're talking to your customers, how can you figure out what trends are resonating with them? How do you plug in with them and find out, a bit about their audience, what they're trying to accomplish, what their tastes and preferences. And, not everybody's going to connect to the most current trends, but I think it's kind of an obligation of a decorator to kind of bring customers up to speed. So can you describe a process that you would take a customer through?
Sure. So again, I'm not customer facing anymore. Where I have a book of business, but I'm still out there with the sales enablement team. And how do we continue to get the information in front of the customers and how do we help our customers know what to ask their clients, right? So I usually, and this goes back even to retail years, you have to get to know what you're selling, right? In order to come up with a collection of items or products, I need to know what I'm giving to them first, right? So you have to ask some key questions. So I would suggest usually there's those top three, like what's the culture and the client of the client's company and the target audience they're trying to talk to or try to speak to. So why is that important? It helps them, recommend relevant products. Number one, it builds a stronger relationship because you're really getting to know them and wanting to know these details. It ensures the promotional items really align with the company's values and the brand image. So it leads to a more personalized fitting solution. Another question is, what's the spending limit? Like there's broad spectrum of products, right? So what types of products might they be interested in? So you have to narrow that down. And that's important to help understand what's the client's budget. Can I go from, the sky's the limit, or is it just something they're just going to need a couple little keychain to add on? It helps with product selection and then preventing wasted time because you don't want to continue to give them all of these high end or maybe there was an opportunity that was missed because you didn't offer the high end. So really asking those questions will align the expectations. The other is the ultimate goal of the decorated apparel. So is there a theme in mind? Is this for a specific event? Brand awareness, gifting, customer employee appreciation, an event. This helps to make sure the item, what you're suggesting is purposeful driven and that the promotional or branded apparel meets what their client's vision is. And it's also making it more successful and meaningful investment because there's a lot of money in this. So it sets that expectations, clarifies the purpose, and the focus to ensure proper product selection, budget your time management. Because again, if they want 2 items, that's an easy project, right? If they're looking to add in 7 or to 10 items, that's different. That's something you have to really account for in the whole process. So you're setting expectations by creating these questions to help kind of align that.
One of the things I oftentimes challenge decorators with, and also promotional products distributors, is, let's assume that your pricing is competitive. Let's assume that you have good service and you provide a good customer experience. But why should your customer buy from you? What is that? What are those unique, value propositions that you offer to your customers? And I think being that creative consultant is so much more impactful than being that person that puts logos on stuff. Really getting to know your customer, just like that process you were talking about, and what their goals are, and trying to connect with them. Because frankly, a construction company is probably going to have a completely different vibe than a financial services company,
For sure.
and it's definitely not a one size fits all.
No.
And with that being said, we are going to actually walk through a couple case studies with a little bit of contrast to illustrate that point. So let me share my screen real quick here. Over to you, Christina.
Okay. And this was actually pretty exciting to do. It was a little bit different spin on what we've been doing kind of historically in these last couple of shows, but it really made me think a little bit more, put my sales hat back on. We were comparing two different companies, a tech company and a finance company, and both are celebrating their anniversary, like their anniversary of the company. So how would their approach to branded apparel differ? And you think, like we said, it's not a one size fits all, right? So we're going to ask those questions, kind of to highlight like a tech company. You've got tech's preferences are usually innovative. They want useful, cutting edge promotional products. They tend to value quality and practicality, and often lean towards like fast paced, forward thinking, and even sustainability practices, right? They prefer the casual, modern work life balance vibe. The emphasis is on branding and employee engagement. Whereas your financial company, their products might align more with their company's professional and prestigious image, right? Functionality that emphasizes trust, reliability, a refined aesthetic. They usually like maybe want a premium and polished look that looks to offer more of a trust and a prestige kind of vibe. Their budget might be higher. It's an executive style apparel offering. And then they focus on strengthening their client relationships as well. So if you go to the next screen, highlighting those three questions that we talked about is really kind of unique. And again, digging into that sales brain that I was kind of channeling to see how to do this, taking those three questions. So you describe the company of culture and target audience. And I highlighted here the two different approaches, the tech company and the finance company. So when they're talking about their company culture, you'll see the tech company talks about innovation, the collaboration of inclusivity. They have a flexible work environment where creativity thrives. Their team members are empowered to think outside of the box. They prioritize work-life balance. And then their target audience includes developers, IT professionals, tech enthusiasts, and primarily the B2B space. On the flip side, the finance company, they're offering their company culture is more grounded in professionalism. They have integrity, commitment to excellence. They emphasize the results-driven environment where employees are encouraged to kind of take initiative and deliver high-quality work. Their target audience is usually high net worth individuals. They're business owners, professionals in need of financial planning and investments. So you see two opposite ends of the spectrum of what we're kind of catering to. The budget for this project, that's the next question, and what types of products to be included. They're looking to stay within a reasonable range, usually with the tech company, or not usually, but in this case. They might prefer flexible if the product offers something unique and high tech. They prefer eco-friendly materials and sustainable products that align with their corporate and social responsibilities. So they're looking for something that might have more tech accessories and stylish and be a plus. On the flip side, the finance company, they have a generous budget for this particular milestone. They want the products to reflect a premium nature of the brand and the importance of the occasion. So they're interested in a high quality item and that projects kind of a professionalism. And then the third question is, what's the ultimate goal of the decorated apparel purchase? They want to celebrate the company's anniversary by thanking employees, customers, and partners. The goal is to reinforce brand and show appreciation while increasing awareness about their achievements and highlight their software and technology. Whereas, sorry, I can't see my screen. The finance companies, they're celebrating the milestone and appreciation of their customers, clients, and employees, but it reinforce their reputation and is a traditional established financial institution. So a little bit different, ways that they both kind of answered. And so kind of in these next couple of slides, you're going to see how we have the pitch offering a good, better, best option, and the sales model that we would use. So in this particular, when I look at usually good, better, best, you think of like a t-shirt, fleece, and headwear breakdown, right? So you have your t-shirts, you're looking at maybe from your good, better, best, your budget cotton, your mid-tier performance blend, and then your premium pigment dyed tee. Your fleece, you're looking at a basic hoodie, mid-weight pullover, and then a luxury pigment dyed. And then in a headwear situation, it's usually standard cotton cap, a brushed twill hat, and a high-end. Sorry, you can stay back on that first slide. Sorry, I was going through just a traditional. Sorry, I wasn't able to share my screen earlier, so we're going to have Craig kind of going through it. So I appreciate him working on this. So in this approach, the way I approach this a little bit differently. So we're going to look at the finance group, and I took more of a styling silhouette versus a one-to-one comparison. So in this particular one, we're looking at the t-shirts, and we're highlighting the good, better, best here with CVCs because we want to commemorate. It's kind of a retro vibe that we're going for. So in this, we're looking at adding some texture with the vintage with the CVCs. We're also your 2001's your good option. It's giving you a name in brand fashion tee and a low price. It's budget friendly. But the 602 is your better option because it has the elevated singles. It's a 36 singles fabric. It has a softer feel. It's great for printability. And then you have the 3001 where it's your best option because there's so many varieties and colors, and it's well known in the industry as one of our, fashion forward brands. Next slide, you'll see again another approach looking at the t-shirts. This was in mind, again, silhouette versus one-to-one comparison. So they're wanting a t-shirt. Well, in this situation, I decided to take a different approach. The All Pro I offered here, this one is more, it's based on a performance. So kind of an everyday use kind of t-shirt that they can use, that they can go from their lifestyle, but also into their, they can use it for underneath, layering effect. The 3513, where I did the long sleeve in this approach, it was to give just, again, another option to give maybe an office. So you want to wear to the office, but you can also wear outside of the office. And then the third option was the Anetic. We're seeing that lift in hooded t-shirts. This one's great because it has the mesh fabric. So you're looking at an elevated piece that has all the bells and whistles. There's UPF factors, and again, great for layering. So it was a little bit different of how we approached what type of shirt and t-shirt they are looking for. Next slide. Polo. That's your staple, right? It's your staple in your financial, your staple in usually most of these corporations. All Pro, again, kind of heavily in the All Pro. We're excited about this new brand that we're bringing in. All Pro, this one's going to have, it's got texture. Well, all three of the styles that I picked had to do with texture. The All Pro Melange is a premium price point, so it's great. It's got cationic dye, so it's great, and it's great for moisture management. Your North End is another elevated piece, so that would be your next. Again, looking at the texture and the standout pattern, and it's recycled poly. And then you have your Adidas, well-known brand, retail brand. And again, this I can't see it unless you look up close, but there's a textured pattern in there as well. So again, giving it kind of, an exciting new trend that we're seeing across the board with elevating polos and not just being your typical performance polo or just something that's your poly polo, tongue twister over here. But giving those elevated feels with texture and variation in color and just finding some newer trend colors that are not your typical black, white, gray, and navy. The next slide. Wovens. Excited with our partnership with Alpha Broder because we're bringing in a ton of new brands that will be able to elevate kind of our woven category. We have our traditional workwear brands, but now we've got some new styles and new brands that will be great for this space and this market. So you have your Core 365. All of these come in some great colors and options. It's giving you, it's just your core basic button down that will be great to use in any situation. The Devon and Jones, this is their newest. This is exciting because it's a lighter weight performance. It has some color. This is the gingham print. So again, giving you some variety. And again, there's this stretch that's added into these performance. And then you go into Huck, I think is how we pronounce that. when we talked about those fishing shirts or those tied shirts, these are really exciting. Again, gives it that casual but elevated feel. You can use this on and off. You can bring it into the office, but you also can use it on the weekend, maybe fishing, maybe camping, or just maybe every day going somewhere after dinner and want something to be an elevated look. So these were exciting styles. Next slide would be quarter zips. Talked about these quarter zips, the traditional. Again, we brought in that all pro style. You can't beat the value for this all pro style. That's number one. It's got the cationic features. So again, with preventing dye migration and lots of color offerings. Independent, this one's exciting because it's a good option. It's got a 4-way stretch. It's got a tearaway label. It's 100% cotton face. So again, great for printing and give kind of that athleisure feel. And then our best option here would be Columbia, not the only best option, but one of our best options because, again, it's a premium fleece style, but also premium retail brand. Next. And then I ended it with some headwear. So again, we talked about like your classic dad cap that kind of caters to a larger audience. Your Richardson, we see these rope hats and the mesh snapback. These are exciting. Everybody loves a Richardson. That's your great, it's a great option to use across, multiple markets. And then the Rempa is the legacy. This is kind of a unique style that's out there. It's these performance. It's perforated. It's got the sustainability element. So again, catering to both those audiences that we were talking about with tech as well as finance, because they can use this on and off out of work, but they can also use it in their everyday lifestyle. So now we're kind of pitching that collection, right? So we're looking to surprise and delight with thoughtful products, right? We need to now curate. We've asked the questions. We now have shown them a good, better, best because we've taken those questions and kind of create an assortment plan for them. This case, I always say more is more. Maybe they were only looking for 1 or 2 styles. I always suggest giving them a little bit of everything so that they can create a nice comprehensive package, right? They probably weren't thinking about a hat, but a hat's a great add-on. Maybe even add a tote bag to carry everything. So again, you're just adding on, to that sale. But in those cases, it's always great to kind of curate give them more options so that they have not too many to overwhelm, but just give them some other options that they maybe weren't thinking about, those accessory pieces. So we're going to surprise and delight with thoughtful products that incorporate the theme and message. You're going to create a flow or a journey. That's kind of what you'll see in this next collection that we curated with products that complement each other. The use of visual and sensory elements such as texture and color or unique design aesthetic, that helps to evoke emotion or a connection. And then incorporate videos, social media, and blogs when you're trying to talk to your customers about what these brands encompass. Maybe that aligns with what they have and what their initiatives are in their companies as well. And then most importantly, you want to make sure it resonates with the target audience's values and lifestyle to encourage, that nostalgia and that excitement. So we took some of our best sellers here, still leaning in on that, the pigment dye because it's still so popular. We're seeing it across the board. But what's exciting about this independent collection, they have now added, which is a first for independent, a t-shirt. And that's their pigment dye t-shirt that you'll see here. That's exciting because there was an overwhelming request that they have all these fleece pieces from a short, a pant, a crew neck, a hoodie, where they don't have a t-shirt to be able to layer in as well, or what maybe mix and match. So we pulled this collection together that has a mix and match opportunity here. And this would be based kind of more off those tech answers. So it's a great example of the trendy pigment dyed. It's the ongoing matching set trend. It's the newest edition of the t-shirt. It's the earthy color palette tones, kind of checks all those boxes. Then the layering options that we have now been able to add with this. So not only does this collection have layering pieces, but you can pair a puffer vest, a wool coat, give it that premium aesthetic. So wanting to give that elevated feel, we're seeing that corporate appropriation kind of happening. You're mixing and matching these coordinating styles with the layering pieces, but you're also adding in maybe that puffer vest, the upscale mid-length wool peak coat where you see it underneath with the hoodie, the fleece hoodie. I mean, we're talking about old money vibes, quiet luxury, all of that's trending across social media. Lean into that. Decoration strategies. So again, we're trying to commemorate an anniversary for them. So you want this collection will align with the tech company goals of quality, budget friendly, because it's a great price point for independent. It's on trend. It's got the work-life balance vibe with the comfort leisure. And it's also to help that milestone, you can offer decoration that has a vintage retro vibe, maybe adding a throwback of their original logo. So if the company's gone through several different logo changes over their time, maybe go back to one of their older logos and put a spin on it, put it in a decorative area on that's just kind of subtle, but gives that nostalgic vibe for those that have been around for a long time. And then adding patches or badges to highlight accomplishments over the years. You can really have fun with adding in and speaking to the decoration style. So you get the basic, you're collaborating both the style of the element of the product and the apparel that you're choosing, but also the design aspect of it.
I'm going to walk you through process that I went through building out a few stores. This is kind of the first store I built. So I'm building the store out in the Inksoft platform. I wasn't thinking about product mix initially. I was thinking about, hey, I need to come up with a logo for these companies that we're creating. So I created two logos. One is Stratus Financial, mixed a serif and a sans serif font together, just a simple graphical element, very classic. And then created this banner ad, and then I superimposed Stratus Financial on the banner. Good websites, good stores have good banners. And I think spending the extra time just to put together a banner really is going to make the store hop. So the next thing I needed to consider was the graphics. And for Stratos, I wanted to do keep it kind of more traditional. So here's the store. I set this up as a store where the financial institution would give their customers a coupon for $100, and they can exercise that against merch. In Inksoft, that's a very easy thing to do. All I need is the email, the amount, and the person's name. I can bulk upload those, create the coupons. One trait we could set up in the coupon is that if they don't use it all at once, that the money doesn't carry over. Another trait would be if they wanted to spend more than their allotment, they could put in their own credit card and do that. Create a little CTA here. There's a countdown deadline, so everybody knows that the store is going to close on the 31st. Will be email marketing going behind this, kind of reminding folks with a link to the store. A lot of times what our customers will facilitate is getting a little postcard put together with a QR code, directing folks to the store with a couple examples of what's available in the store. And I wanted to start with Stratos. I wanted to start with that corporate apparel, that higher end, more formal look. And so I selected some products from All Pro and then the core product as well. So the basic idea here is a very clean, simple embroidery logo. And so what I did is I took the vector graphic of the logo that I created, and then I dropped that into my embroidery software, which is called Drawings, and it created the Sew Ready file. Once I had it created in size, what I did is I saved that as a DST file, and I also saved it in the native format for the embroidery program. Now I've got the graphic done, and because it's a DST file, in the Inksoft platform, I have the ability to go in and recolor it, because if I import a DST file, I can select my stitch library. In this case, I think I chose Madeira, and just assign the thread colors. And if I need to do colorways, I can do that. So very simple product here. I ended up doing the same thing with the twill dress shirt, same idea. And then I also did the same thing with our good friend, the quarter zip. And this is the All Pro. Looks like a wonderful shirt. Maybe this is the one we're going to consider for our trade show uniforms. I think that'd be a good choice. So simple, classic, traditional, not too exciting, but I think it works. And there is kind of a beauty and simplicity. But I took it a different approach too, is I wanted to create some kind of more like corporate lifestyle apparel, which kind of a tie into like a resort wear look. And so I chose 3 products for independent, including that new t-shirt and the pigment dyed. And then I did the hoodie, opted to go with a patch on the hoodie as a left chest pocket patch. And then on the t-shirt and the crew neck, we're going to do either a screen print or a DTF print. And on this one, I didn't do a weathered overlay. I didn't want to make it look weathered out. I wanted to be a little bit more formal, and I used kind of a vintage scrolling look. And I think it's just a really nice, clean graphic. It has the right proportions around the text. Use a classic font. Let's take a closer look at the patch. Patch is kind of fun. So I just created a crest logo and dropped in 50 in there. And we could do that with the DTF patch, or I can do it with embroidery or actually a true patch. For the other store, I did it that route. And then for the headwear, I kept it pretty basic. I did the same thing with heat sealed patch over here. And then over here, I did, traditional embroidery, and I just chose a Richardson 112 in the corporate colors, which kind of that navy gray look. Dropped another graphic in here, just a little celebration thing. Because this is an Inksoft store, it's not an online order form. I have a lot of latitude in terms of the visuals, making it, adding these components. And so if I go over here into the Inksoft style editor, the way these components get added is each one of these components has different options. So right over here, when I added this TA, I just hit store component and I went in and clicked on this CTA. It just opened right up, and I'm retaining the copy from the last time, which makes it easier because I'm going to clone this store for the other tech company. But what it allows me to do is I can just go in here and just edit that. So here's all the copy over here. So when I made the store for the tech company, all I had to do is change that to 20th and then replace the banner here. So I just uploaded the banner, and here is the banner for the other company. I'm not going to save this, but here's the CTA banner. So I just switched that out to 20 and a new CTA banner. That's pretty straightforward. I'm going to discard those changes, but I wanted you guys to see how components work, and then everything works via drag and drop. So if I want to reorder that, I can drag and drop. And if I want to add another new component, maybe, we'll create a product real quick here. I'm going to go over here and we'll just do a featured product, and I'll go over here and I want to manage my products. I want to drop something else in there. I went and created this kind of cool snapback trucker cap with a laser etched embroidery. And then at that point, all I would do is drag it up in the order to where I wanted it. So maybe I want it at the very top. And now you got a snapback trucker cap. And this is a very popular look. So how did I create these products? The way I did it is this way. So in Inksoft, I'm in the style editor, and the style editor is where we add components and adjust components. Store performance, this is where I can kind of see what's going on with the store. I don't have any orders in here yet, but I can give customers access to the store component. A performance dashboard is a little bit different than one that's customer facing, has things in it I don't want them to see. Doesn't have anything in there I don't want them to see, like it's not going to have costing in there. But they have access to that component. I have to give them access, so I'd only probably give this access to the buyer or some key personnel at Stratos. They also have access to see all their quotes and invoices, any orders, any artwork that was updated, say payment methods. Think of it as like your Amazon account. And one of the things that's really cool about this is if you're using this to place orders, the customer can go in here and click on orders and place a reorder right out of here, which is very handy from a self-service point of view. And we just want to make it easy for our customers to do business with us. Under store admin here, this is where I'm managing the products and the artwork. So this is the artwork that I created. I uploaded it, and then I was able to do colorways because this artwork is all vector based. I created it in our graphics flow platform. I had the ability within the Inksoft platform to go in and change the colors. And I noticed when I was creating some of the products that the colors weren't, really jiving. They were maybe too light or too dark for the blank color. And so a matter of changing colors is just going in here. Here's the product. I set what color I want to see first. Any descriptions. Here's the description if I want to edit it. It's active in my store. Here's keyword search tags for that product. If there's going to be any personalization fields, like we're allowed to add a name or a title in there, which we're not in this store. Under pricing and styles, here's why I set up the pricing. But right here, edit, design, and styles. So if I went in here on this graphic right here and I looked at it and I said, hey, I really want to flip the colors on here a little bit. So I go over here to view colorways. I can go and create a new colorway and say, maybe take that black and make that navy, and maybe take this color and make it really a much brighter, lighter color. And once I've done that, I can just save that as a colorway. And I don't have to go back to my graphics program to do that. I'm just doing it right in the app. The conditions by which this has to occur is it has to be a vector graphic. So it's got to be like an EPS file or a PDF file or an SVG file. And since I created all these graphics in Graphics Flow, they were all vector to begin with. And same thing with the embroidery. On the embroidery side of things, I can do the same thing. Even though this right now is an embroidered file, I can go in, and if I want to create a different colorways and maybe add a new product, if I want to go in and just add a new product from scratch, I would just go over here and say add products. So I would say new product. So if we go with the budget tee, say Golden 5000, and go over here, add the graphic to it. That's all vector, size it however I want. And over here, I probably need to recolor it a little bit. So go to View Colorways, and I already have a color variation in there. Want to make it a pocket, go over here and make a pocket. And then got a little pocket design there, create the product, assign the price, any upcharges for the bigger ones, add that. If we want to alter the description, maybe we don't want to say Gildan. So we'll go over here, just call it heavy cotton, and then hit finish. So to add this to my store, super easy. Just go to Style Editor. So we'll just go over here and add a single component, manage products. It's just sitting right there. Done. And that's basically it. That is the store I built out for the Stratos Financial, which is of the two companies in the case study, is the more conservative one. Still some classic looks, still some fun kind of lifestyle apparel, kind of a tourist and resort look here. I think we've created some graphics that are definitely a lot cooler than just basic text on a graphic. But let me show you how we got here, because the way I was able to produce this was by simply using our graphics flow platform. So if I had to come up with all these graphics from scratch, I have a graphic design background, I could do that. It would be extremely time consuming. That store that I built there, including the graphics and everything from the ground up, I built in about 45 minutes last night at the end of my workday. So that store took me about 45 minutes to build because I put a lot of energy into the actual graphics. I had to design the logo. That didn't take very long. I think that took me like 5 minutes. Save the logo files. Had to design the banners, and that took me about another 5 minutes. So I've got about 10 minutes into that. And then I probably spent about 15 or 20 minutes playing around with the graphics and digitizing the embroidery. So now we're into and then about 15 minutes to assemble the store from a template. It wasn't a particularly time-consuming project. I wanted to look at a couple different styles. And so I logged into my graphics flow account. All of these files are vector-based files. They're all in Illustrator and CorelDRAW format. Yes, I could download them into Illustrator or Corel, but don't really need to do that because we have in-app editing on the native Illustrator file built right into graphics flow, along with all the clip art and fonts and all the other fun stuff. So on the patch design, all I did is I went into Style and I selected the patch category, and I don't really care what the text in the patch was. It didn't really matter to me. What I was really looking for is a layout that would accommodate the text that I was looking for. And so I just started scrolling through. I'm not even looking at the copy in there. I'm just looking at, the layout. Is it going to accommodate the text? I wanted something that was kind of classic, especially for that laser etched look. So let's say it was going to be this one right here. I would just click on it and just say customize. And once that pops up, what I would do is kind of rough the text in initially. So we don't need that element right there. So I'm going to turn that element off. We're going to go over here and change this to established 1976, 50 years, and that's something. So we're going to change that over there, and probably going to blow that up a little bit. Maybe make that a little bit bigger. Maybe even a little bigger than that. Looks good. And then over here, I'm going to say where it says Eat Local, I'm going to say Celebrating over here. And then where it says right here, I'm just going to say 50 years. So there's my patch. And then where it says Provisions, this is where I'd say Stratos Financial. There's an envelope in there. So it's going to start to squeeze the text. And if I want to add another little space in here, create a little bit more space, nudge it down. And that's basically how I create a patch. And then at this point, really it's just a matter of like coloring it. I would just come down here and just say, hey, let's make that navy blue. Let's actually add some contrasting color in here. So where the Stratos is, let's go in and maybe make that. Let's make that kind of a medium-ish gray. And hit apply, and we're done. What I would do at this point is I would just save it. And if I was going to digitize this, I'm just going to take the PDF file once I download it, and it's going to go straight into my digitizing program. And because I'm using the drawings program, it's just super quick to convert this to embroidery. Got it saved. It's saving into my graphics flow account. And then I would just download the PDF. And this is the file that I would bring into Inksoft. So we'll just go and download that one, save that as a PDF file. If I'm going to add that to a product, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back here and go over to products again. And let's say we're going to put it back on one of those pigment dyes, this one right here. And I'm going to switch that over to the blue. So, one of the things that I think people that aren't familiar with using like a program like Inksoft where it's tuned into apparel decoration industry. They're probably not used to being able to have that access to that graphics processing within the platform. All these products are coming from the S&S feed that's built into Inksoft. We're getting all of the data from S&S daily, including inventory, including all the photography, all of the color swatches, all of the pricing. I don't have to go tracking down photos or any of that. So we've got that all set up. And actually, I like the colors. I think it works great. And just say, great product. Give it a price. Upcharge for the big ones. I just created a graphic from scratch, uploaded it to Inksoft, and then let's just add it to the store. Store components, add a featured product, manage products, add it, done, and then just throw it up in the object order. So I'm just going to move it up. So that was the first one. Now, I took a different approach to the other store. The other store it was Fortify Cybersecurity, which is a tech company, a little bit cooler vibe, a little bit less conservative, kind of fun. Did the same thing. So how did I get to this store? Let me show you how I did it. Number one, what I started with was a store template. So when I created the original store, I started with a store template, and I just started with this template right here. I didn't have to really do anything. I just started with this template. I could view a little demo of the template. I put the name of the store in here and created a URL. This does not have to go to an Inksoft domain. It can be directed to their website. If I have them set up a page like /50 years merch, I could actually redirect this store to that page. This is the template that I utilized to create the Stratos. So once I had the Stratos done, no joke, I built the other store in 15 minutes, including creating the graphics. I just had a huge head start because I already had the graphics kind of selected. So what I had to do is just go in and do a little bit of name dropping on the graphics. And then what I did is cloned the store. So I went and located the Stratos store and I said clone. And then I put the name in here and then I switched on this box. The reason I switched on that box is when I include products and store art, all the curated products that I curated from Stratos, including all the independent stuff, they all came over. And also, I already had a pre-curated collection of products that I sell all the time in my base store. So all those products came over too. So all my base products came over, like that golden t-shirt, but I also had already added the independent products to that Stratos store. When I cloned it, they were already there waiting for me. And all I had to do when I created the store was do what's called bulk art replacement. I just took the artwork that was in here already and I just swapped it. So here's the art. And I said, hey, all the other logo, I just swapped it with this one. I just said replace art, and all the new logos came in and replaced the old one and got placed on the products. So it made it just super easy for me to create that store. The other thing that I needed to do is I went in and then updated the store branding, updated the logo and the little icon that shows in the tab in your web browser. The Inksoft will pull the colors out of the logo so that when I go into the style editor and change the colors, they're already sitting there from the logo. Super easy. And then the products are already there. So I did a little bit of mix on the products, but I did something fun with the graphic. I created this graphic from a graphics flow template, but I also created two versions, one with a weathered effect and then one that had just a solid look to it. This one has a weathered effect to it. And I think that really makes the design, it's kind of that vintage vibe there. The weathered effect really ties in great with pigment dye. I think it's a nice, clean, collegiate look. I actually used the font from their actual company. So it kind of tied it in. Anytime we're playing around with graphics for corporations, generally a great idea to get art approvals done. Graphics Flow has that wonderful art approval functionality, including version control in there. So I would use that. And then here's the same idea with the leather patch. We did that. And then the one that was really exciting is I took that patch that I created from Graphicsful and I dropped it into my drawing software and converted it to an applique. It's just such an incredibly rich look, especially on that really nice heavyweight fleece. Taking the one store that I built out, that will be my sample kind of corporate event store moving forward. And anytime I'm doing corporate events, I'll just clone that store. And then from zero to this, literally in 15 minutes. That's it. That's how fast it is to deploy stores. And Inksoft, what we're doing is we're just making it super convenient for the customer. Think about all the the layers of convenience. We've helped them to curate their products. We've consulted with them to really understand their project and what their needs are. We've gone in and presented ideas to them. So we're not just kind of that logos on stuff person. We're really positioning ourselves as kind of that creative consultant. And once we had the products curated, we built graphics with graphical themes and styles around the products, and we got those over to them so they could sign off on the graphics before we proceeded. And then we built out a store. So I would probably, if I was trying to close this deal and I already had them signed off on the graphics, I would probably just build the store out and send the store out to them immediately and say, hey, this is what we're doing. Because what I just did at that point was I locked all the competition out. If you use this as a pitch store, this is my showroom. I can send this store to anybody and say, hey, let me show you a campaign we did for another company. And I can send this link out and use it as my, kind of my online showroom. So this power of, online stores is, it's a real thing. It's a huge competitive advantage for our customers. And probably the coolest part about this whole thing is how fast I can deploy it. So people are always thinking about, virtual samples and PDF flyers and all that. No, spend that little extra time to launch a store around it, and customers are going to be impressed. You got them locked in, and you just made it just so convenient for them to purchase. Anything you would like to add, Christina?
No, I love this. As I was looking through, like you literally encapsulated exactly kind of what the two clients were saying. You want a little bit of the traditional, but you want to add something to make it commemorative, but also show that lifestyle living and, give it that advancement and showing those, the next stages of where we could take apparel. So I was impressed when I saw these. I thought that was super exciting. And you're right, the ease of use. And again, I'm looking at it from not using that platform. So it looks maybe overwhelming to begin with, but really when you dial it down to really just the customization, you've taken all the guesswork out and you've now given them a full assortment of what they can be using. And it makes it easy and less overwhelming for them. And it's easy to make those quick changes if there was something they needed to change out. So these were great. I think you did a great job on it. So
Yeah, and one thing I also point out, the business model for the store varies. So I set this up as a gift certificate store where every employee is getting a budget, but this could just as easily be a store that I run for 3 weeks. And we put a price on the store. Every employee goes in to make their selection, their one shirt or their one hat or whatever we're doing, go that route. Or it could be a paid store where the employees are going in and they're being it's like their quote pro shop where they go to their pro shop and they buy merch that they just want to buy, not necessarily just the free merch. So there's just a lot of different ways to model this, but the whole idea behind this whole concept, Christina kind of captured, is we curated the products very carefully around fashion trends, incorporated the graphics to complement the products, and then presented a total solution that really doesn't require the buyer to do much at all, just too much savings. And that's what we want to do. And we've elevated ourselves above the competition. So all these logos on stuff people, it's really challenging to compete with a company that has like a full service graphics offering that has creative built into their kind of DNA, so to speak. And the tools that I used to create the store allowed me to cut some corners, having all those thousands of graphics to start with that are all vector and production ready. Having a really great embroidery software allowed me to have the flexibility to convert those files to a stitch-ready file in just a couple minutes. Having this incredible Inksoft platform that's built for apparel decorators and sign makers and promotional products distributors. So with that being said, I would encourage all of you, I would challenge everyone on the webinar to kind of start thinking outside the box, to evaluate kind of your graphic strategy, evaluate what your e-commerce strategy is, plug into fashion trends, and separate yourself from the competition. Really that's what it's all about. Any last words, Christina?
And no, you just brought up another point though. Make the ease of use for the buyer. We're creative, right? So we could visualize things. Not everyone can. So when you put it together for them, that already takes that will solidify that buy pretty much 100% because there's no other thought process and they can visually see it. So I think that's pretty much that seals the deal for you and elevates you and knocks out that competition, as you were saying. Instead of just giving them a t-shirt with a sample touch and feel, you've now created the whole story and given them the whole story to select. So I love it.
Well, Christina, thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you all for participating in TrendWatch. And we will see you on the next one. Thanks again.